E-L-O-E-J, a little aloha in our day. Spread a little aloha around the world. At breakfast with Bob.
Thank you, Poncho Man. Welcome, everybody, to Breakfast with Bob, not quite Kona edition. My name is Bob Babbitt. We are brought to you by Hoka One One Master Spas, Clash Endurance, UCAN Hyper Ice, Premium Plus Sports, Form Smart Swim Goggles, and of course, our Challenged Athletes Foundation. We just sent out 3,038 grants totaling $5.1 million. Keep challenged athletes in the game of life through sport. My next guest, someone I'm so excited to chat with. She has had a year for the ages. 2020 Olympic gold medalist, the first gold medalist from the country of Bermuda. She is also a four-time Olympian, a five-time XTERRA World Champion. She has done it all. Flora, how are you?
Hey, Bob. Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
And you've still got another race. I thought the season was over. You're going for your sixth win at XTERRA World Championships.
Yep, I do. I have one more race in the season that feels like it's never ending. But I'm excited to head to Maui. I leave on Monday. And yeah, going for my sixth XTERRA win. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what I have left in the tank after a long year.
Well, a long year. And you're talking the WTS race. We got XTERRA coming up. I saw you with Super League at Malibu. You won that. I mean, the variety of races that you've won this year has been pretty impressive. But I want to go back a little bit before we talk about Olympics. Is growing up in a small country like Bermuda, when did you find the sport of triathlon?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Bermuda, and I found the sport really early on. I did my first triathlon when I was 7 or 8 years old.
Wow.
And yeah, the Iron Kids Triathlon, which still goes on today in Bermuda. And it's like way bigger than when I did it back a long time ago now. And I did the triathlon because I swam at a local swim club. I ran at primary school, and I knew how to ride a bike. So my parents just entered me into a triathlon, and I did it. I loved it. I think I won my age group. And literally the next week, I joined the local triathlon club, Tri-Heads, which is also still ongoing today. And that was it. I just love the sport. I love doing each sport individually, raced each sport individually, then obviously would combine them and do triathlon. And yeah, I mean, Bermuda is it's a beautiful place, warm, sunny climate, beautiful, warm water. So it's a great place to do triathlon. You can do it there year round. So just kind of what I did.
And part of that kids program, like once a year, you guys, when you go to Chicago, take like 50 kids and go. Was that the Chicago Triathlon that you guys would go for?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, it was the Chicago Mrs. T's Triathlon.
The largest triathlon in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And I remember we loved it because we were little island kids, right? So then we get to go away to the US and a whole crew of us. And I remember the race would be at like one of the massive hotels and have a giant expo. And we would just run around that expo collecting as much free stuff as we could. And oh my God, we just loved it. And yeah, but that was my first overseas triathlon. And I did it quite a few years.
And they had a race on Bermuda, right? Didn't they have a race that you guys could watch in terms of a pro race back then?
Yeah. So in the late 90s, the ITU had a World Cup there. So I got to watch that as like a 10-year-old, so I saw like Emma Carney race, Healy Jones, Greg Welch, like you name it, they were there. So that was like pretty cool. And that was my first exposure to professional triathlon, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and then you went to Mount Kelly boarding school in England. It's known for its swim program. They had a 4-person tri squad. So at that point, you're thinking, you know what, this could be my ticket. This could be my livelihood down the line. Or were you just loving the fact that, I get to swim, bike, and run?
Yeah, I mean, I think a bit of both. But I reached a point, Bermuda, it's a great place, but it's very small. And I had like sporting aspirations. So I really wanted to, test myself amongst the world a bit more. And it kind of came to a point in my education where it was a nice fitting time to actually go abroad to finish my studies. So yeah, I went to boarding school at Mount Kelly, and they had a great swim program, triathlon program. And yeah, it was great. I mean, it was like an absolute bit of culture shock for me when I first got there, because it to me felt like quite a posh boarding school, and the uniform that we had to wear, and
Right.
like the cold weather, and just different, totally different like exposure for me. And it was fantastic. And yeah, that was like a pivotal moment for me of trying to pursue this dream to be a professional triathlete. Yeah, and so from there, that kind of opened me up. I got to race a lot of the races within England, do a bit of cross country racing,
Right.
and yeah, then started doing a little bit of like international racing as well.
Well, and so when you start racing on the ITU circuit, and you're heading towards Beijing, which will be your first Olympic Games, then all of a sudden there's more pressure, right? You're going to be representing your country, and then it's not just fun and games. And it sounds like the pressure was hard because you ended up with an eating disorder. I don't think Beijing went the way you wanted it to go.
Mm-hmm.
Talk a little bit about that period of your life, because coming from where you were then to where you are now, that's a hell of a journey.
Yeah, it's definitely been a very, very long journey with many ups and downs. But I mean, I've learned so much. And to be honest, everything I've learned throughout this journey, if we jump forward, I think set me up to race how I did in Tokyo. And that was like a really beautiful moment, like a culmination, it felt, of all of my years. But yeah, in those early years, I kind of shot onto the ITU scene. I had a top 10 at Commonwealth Games as an 18-year-old. That was my first ever like international race. It was like totally out of my depth. I didn't really know what I was doing. It's kind of beautiful. I just kind of like turned up and raced, and I was 8. And people were like, who's this girl from Bermuda?
And where's Bermuda? Where is that place? Yeah,
exactly. And then, later that year, I was second at Junior World Championships and had a couple other top 10s in some World Cups. So it was a really massive year for this. I think I was like 18, 19 years old, just kind of, I don't know, just turning up and racing. And it was definitely kind of shot me into the spotlight a bit more. And I think it was way more than I was ready for at the time in terms of my maturity, the support resources that I had. And so, yeah, I definitely, I just had a bit of a steep learning curve, and going into Beijing was struggling with some health issues. And I think it was all just getting a bit too much for me. And so when I raced in Beijing, that was kind of like one of the worst races or worst experiences, but also one of the better ones, because it realized I needed to actually step back and take time away from the sport and just, I don't know, be a normal 20-year-old.
Right.
And that's exactly what I did. And then that, kind of kicked off this long journey to where I am now.
When I look at so 2008 was Beijing, and that was a DNF, and then you crashed to 2012.
Yep.
Right. But then you see the journey. Then it's 2016 eighth, and then obviously win the gold medal in this year. Talk a little bit about you. You end up going to University of Colorado, and I think that sort of turned things around for you, because you didn't have to think about triathlon. You were racing bikes, and you sort of eased back into triathlon. When you got there and realized no one really cared if you did triathlon or not, was that sort of freeing for you, not having, because when you're back home in Bermuda, that's a small place. Everybody knows Flora Duffy back there. You're already the Olympian. Now nobody cares. When you're a Boulder, you're a great athlete, stand in line. We got 1 million of those here.
Oh yeah, that's totally for sure. I mean, everyone around here, you never know when there's gonna be like a world champion or Olympic medalist just around the corner. But yeah, when I first came to Boulder in 2009, I was taking a break from triathlon, and it was simply, I wanted to finish my studies, and I wanted to be kind of a normal college kid.
Yeah.
And that was really amazing for me. I think when I first would meet people, of course, I would never be like, yeah, I've gone to the Olympics and I used to race triathlon full time. Like, those would be the last things I would tell people. And eventually, people would find out and whatever, but it was kind of nice to have a different identity.
Yes.
And I got into some bike racing just for fun. It was a great way to meet people, to kind of, get back into sport a little bit, but, still party a lot, had a big social life. And it was great whilst, finishing up my studies. So I felt like I had that really nice, I want to call it like normal college experience. Whilst I was sort of, starting to get back into sport, and triathlon was, was becoming more and more appealing. Kind of, realized while, having this almost different identity that actually, yeah, I think I do want to get back into triathlon, and that's kind of what I want to pursue once I finish up my studies.
Well, and then Neil Henderson, who coached for 9 years, is there, and he's working with Taylor Finney. He's working with a lot of different athletes, and so you can become one of those athletes. And again, there's not that big time pressure. But coming back in 2010 and going to High V, that was like was that one of your first triathlons since Beijing?
That was my first race in Beijing. Yeah.
You jump into High V with one of the greatest fields ever assembled. That's great.
I know. Well, I didn't really know that, but it was a World Cup in the US.
Yeah.
And the timing fit. It was during the summer, so I wasn't studying. I had a couple of months to, prepare for it, because it was in like June. So, Neil was like, yeah, Flora, just give it a go. You can go try it. You're in decent shape again. It'll be great to go race. And so I was like, yeah, okay. And I didn't really put the pieces together that it was like, because it had a massive prize purse, and literally like the who's who of triathlon was there. So I was definitely like, oh my goodness, when I got to the race.
You were top 20 in that field.
I was top 20. And that was a massive moment for me at the time. And it was great. I was back into racing. I absolutely loved being back, loved the racing, being amongst everyone again. So yeah, that was the moment, in 2010, that sort of, kicked off me back racing, and I slowly kind of built from there.
Well, and then you end up going to your second Olympics in London and crashed on the bike. So obviously that wasn't a happy time, but it seems like it didn't affect you like Beijing did.
No, I think, going into London, I was in a much better headspace. Really excited to race. It had a few good results leading into London. And honestly, for me at the time, a top 20 would have been incredible in London. Yeah. And unfortunately, I crashed. Quite a few of us went down right in front of Buckingham Palace.
Yes.
In this corner, it was really slick. It had rained the morning of the race. So yeah, the roads were really slick, and I just got taken out in a crash. And that's that, right? I mean, I got back up, had to, kind of fix my bike a little bit. And by that time, the race had gone, and ended up in, I guess, like the third pack.
Right.
So yeah, it was kind of very disappointing, but at the same time, it was great to finish. And compared to Beijing, it was a huge step in the right direction, and actually really quite a positive experience. And not to mention the London Games in general were just incredible.
Unbelievable.
To be there was super special.
That was the coolest thing. And you must have had some fans in the stands because you'd gone to school there.
Yes. Yeah, that was so cool. I mean, there's so many Bermudians that are, in London or, in and around England. So that felt like I had loads of Bermudians there. And then if my family, my parents grew up in the north of England. So I had a lot of extended family that had come down to watch. And then, just because I've been in England in the few years prior, it was really nice. And the crowd was insane.
Oh so crazy.
Yeah.
We were there for the Paralympics, and it was, 85,000 people in the stadium for the Paralympics. I'm like, oh my God, they are so sport crazy over there. It was wonderful. So the transition into mountain biking in XTERRA, a lot of times we have people in our lives who believe in us before we believe in ourselves. And it sounds like Dan Hugo was the guy, right? Mm-hmm. That sort of saw something in you that maybe you didn't see in you.
Yes, definitely. I think, Dan had sort of seen, the early part of my career. This is before he knew me.
Yeah.
And so I guess he, took note of like, wow, okay, this is a surprise. There's a girl from Bermuda and she's quite talented. And then he met me when I was in Boulder, and a few years later that we started dating. And that's kind of was when I sort of got into XTERRA. I knew how to mountain bike because I got into that when I was in college.
Yeah.
And then, I was dating Dan, and he was at XTERRA, and I'd been interested in trying it. So that definitely fast forwarded my interest in racing off-road. But yeah, even during that whole time period, I mean, just like, the stuff Dan would like, write me a list and he would entitle it of like, these are the things you need to do and you'll be world class. And like, for me, I never believed that or saw that, but he could definitely see that, there was a lot of talent, I guess, and potential. And if I just cleaned a few things up, just trained properly, nutrition, rest, recovery, just prioritize the sport really, how I could, make my way up to the top. And so, yeah, he definitely believed in me more than I did at the time. And it was definitely a big source of, I don't want to say inspiration, but a big motivator of someone, to believe in you that much. It's like quite powerful.
Exactly. Flora's steps to becoming a multiple world champion.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yep.
And then 2014, you win XTERRA World. And then you get a podium in 15 at the WTS Abu Dhabi.
Yep.
And probably the race that I remember the most is 2016, after Gwen wins the gold. You knocked her off. Was it at Cozumel?
It was. Yeah, it was at Cozumel. It was the grand final.
The grand final.
Yeah.
So you come away just knocking off the gold medalist. I'm sure you're thinking, okay, we got an Olympics coming up in 2020. This is my time.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I quite thought that, because I think, but I mean, perhaps from the outside, I think that people were definitely, perhaps thought that. But I think for myself, all of 2016 was just like a complete, almost shock and whirlwind for me, because I never would have imagined that I would win the world title that year.
Yeah.
Or be top 10 at the Olympics, and be ranked number 1 going into the Olympics. Like all of these things were just like way more than I thought possible. So it was just like such a crazy year where you have no expectation on you. You're just going into every single race of just like, wow, well, I guess I'm ranked number 1. So this is pretty cool. I'm just going to roll with it for as long as possible. And then I remember that race in Cozumel. For the overall series, it was super tight between Gwen and I. And it was literally going to be whoever crossed the line first was going to take it. And I thought to myself, like before, I was like, Flora, how did you get yourself into this situation? Like you're going up against the woman who's been so dominant the last few years, just won the Olympics in a really dominant fashion. Like, how are you going to do this? And I don't know, that's like the beautiful thing of racing, right? It just like matters on the day. And I luckily had a fantastic day and really like racing in hot and humid conditions. So I think that helped me as well. And it was a really kind of, crazy moment that, I crossed the line first and I won the world title. And that was a pretty massive moment in my career.
So as you're heading towards Tokyo, then we have COVID and everybody's put on hold, right? And nobody wants that when they're doing well. So how did you deal with that? Just the fact that you had the Olympics isn't going to happen in 2020, and it was even questioned if it's going to happen in 2021. Mm-hmm. So how did you deal with all that, knowing that, gosh, this is my dream, and I don't know if we're going to have the Olympics or not?
Yeah, it was pretty wild. I would not recommend being one of the Olympic favorites for 5 years. It's pretty tough.
That's a great point. Yes.
That extra year makes a difference. Trust me.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was just such a strange moment, right? That when you heard that the Olympics was going to be postponed. I mean, for me at the time, I was in South Africa and we had just entered a really hard lockdown.
Right. That's right.
So at the time I was like, before the Olympics have been officially postponed, I was like, I can't leave my house to do anything but go to the grocery store. Like I have to train all in my garage on a treadmill or a trainer. The pools are closed. I have no access to any of that. Like how am I even going to train for the Olympics? So, initially when I heard it was going to be postponed, there was a bit of a moment of relief because you're like, okay, because it's already stressful enough preparing for the Olympics, never mind under these circumstances. And then, I think the hardest day for me was the day after the race was meant to happen in 2020.
Yes.
And I was out on a long ride and I was like, I expected to feel either really happy that day or really sad because the race would be done. But either way, the race would be done. and this big, massive thing that I'd been building up to be over.
Right.
But it wasn't. And I was like, here we are with another extra year of carrying, this on my shoulders.
And we don't know if it's really going to happen.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't like there was any guarantee. They could cancel it altogether.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And so I think for me, like even, the whole of 2021 into the Olympics, I just like completely removed myself from looking at any sort of media about whether the games was going to happen, whether it wasn't, because it was just like, I can't control that.
No.
I have enough that I need to focus on. So yeah, it was definitely an extra variable to deal with.
So then you get to the Olympics and the day of your race is pouring rain.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, let's add another,
of course,
another variable to this game. But when you draw it up, you were with the right people, right, on the bike. It was with Katie there and Georgia. You were with exactly who you wanted to be with. Was there communication between the 5-6 of you guys to say, hey, let's keep this going? Because, we know the 3 medals are here if we keep this going.
Yep. Yeah. So actually 2 days before the race, we had our briefing and they were like, oh, there's a typhoon passing by Tokyo. So the race might be postponed 2 days. And we were all like, what? Like, talk about like another thing to be dealing with in this buildup. But thankfully, I think there was just, I can't even imagine the amount of communication that went on between, the World Triathlon, IOC, weather experts. Anyway, so the race happened and yes, there was a typhoon passing. So super wet, windy, raining, stormy conditions. And for me, I knew the swim was going to be the absolute key to that race.
Yeah. So
when I came out of the water and I saw exactly who was with me, I knew it was like, check, like step 1, this is really good. And then after the first lap or 2 of the bike, got to assess the situation, heard the time gap back to the chase group, which I think, or where Nicola was, which was 70 seconds. Yes. And she's kind of the only one. When I saw who I was with, I was like, well, the only one back there that'll be working and chasing is Nicola. And she was 70 seconds back. I saw, I'm with Jess, Georgia, Katie, myself, like we don't need to really communicate. We know we're just committed.
Because you've raced them together long enough.
Yep. Yes. And we know it's best for all of us if we can, ride strong, ride smooth, each take pulls, try to just increase that gap, maintain that gap. Because the medals were coming from that group. And honestly, the most stressful thing, and I think it's been the most focused I've ever been in a race, was just like, stay on your bike, don't do anything dumb. Because
18 turns per lap on that. I'm like, okay, who designed this thing? This is the most ridiculous course I have ever seen. It's like, let's do it in the parking lot and let's just go around and sort of, it was nuts. I'm going, they couldn't come up with a better course than this for the Olympics, because especially on a wet course with all those turns, that I was just worried someone was going to go down. Yeah.
It always looks more treacherous though when you're watching than when you're in, in the race. Because even when I've rewatched the race and I'm like, oh gosh.
So you come off the bike and you and Katie, and then you were gone. I mean, was that the plans? Like, I just want to get out of here and let them try to chase me, but I'm ready to run 33 here.
Well, I didn't really quite know I was going to run 33, but actually, funny story. The day before the race, Dan was like, I think you can run 33:10. And I'm like, is this guy nuts? Like, we're just trying to win the race. That's hard enough. Never mind run 33:10. But I knew I was in really good run shape. And I was just having one of those days that you just dream of having, when everything lines up and you feel great. And so I just decided I would take it out hard, because I really backed my fitness and I really backed how I race. It was still warm and it's still very humid. So I really back how I race in those conditions. And then honestly, I just kind of got into a really good rhythm. And when I went past Dan for the first time, he actually shouted at me, 33:10, you're going to run 33:10. And again, I was like, what is with this guy? Like, I'm leading the Olympics right now. This has got to be enough.
That should be good enough.
Yeah. But I later found out he shouted that at me to kind of throw me off. to get me thinking about something else, right? Other than the fact that I was leading the Olympics.
Right.
Because I mean, I've raced in many big races and won many big races, but it's the next level to be out there putting it all on the line at the Olympic Games and leading.
Right.
And so I think that was his tactic. And you know, at about 5K, I saw the gap back to Katie was in second at the time.
Yes.
Georgia was just coming through. And that was kind of one of the first moments I knew, like, this is very likely going to happen. And so then I just really had to distract myself. Obviously, you almost got to stay focused on the task at hand, but also not think about the fact that you're likely going to win this event in about 15 minutes. So I would just be like counting down the aid stations, thinking about any sort of run cues. And yeah, just trying to keep my mind from like swaying, you know, drifting to the fact that I'm going to win this race.
And you end up running 33 flat, by the way.
Yeah,
33
flat,
flat.
yeah. And my coach was like, couldn't you just run a tiny bit quicker? Broken 33? I'm like, oh gosh.
One of my favorite photos from the games is because I love the camaraderie of our sport. At the end of the day, it's you against the course, right? Not so much you against the other people. And seeing you jumping up and down when Katie was coming down the stretch for the bronze, that was really cool. Because obviously you guys have raced together a ton of times. Mm-hmm. And you know, you both want each other to have your best day. Is that one of the attractions of the sport, that you can, yes, you want to win. Yes, you want to be the best, but you also want the person next to you to be their best.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's one thing we're really lucky with. I guess I can only speak for in the women's racing in the World Triathlon circuit, is that we all we get along. And I think we all really support each other and we all really like each other, which is really cool. I mean, I think when we're on course, of course, we want to do our best and we're all striving to win the race. But at the same time, we can immediately congratulate one another and be very happy for whoever's on the podium, whoever's won the race, or whoever's had a top 10 for the first time. And yeah, I think that's really special. And so, yeah, for me, it is a beautiful photo. I've seen, and I actually think Tommy might have taken it.
Tommy took it.
I was very excited for Katie. I mean, I think for the first fact, like, she is a friend of mine. So
what she's gone through,
her win a medal, right? And then you know her story and her buildup and everything she had to overcome to get to that moment. It was a really special moment, and yeah, just so cool.
So it's one thing to be, you know, hey, you're a gold medalist from the state of Rhode Island or whatever. You're the only gold medalist in the history of your country, right? I mean, that's a big deal. We're talking Flora Duffy Day in Bermuda, right? October 18th is Flora Duffy Day. And you were at US Open, right? Because Bermuda is a sponsor there. You're a special guest at the US Open. Talk about some of the fun things that happen after you win that gold medal.
Oh my gosh, it's absolutely nuts after you win. Nobody told me that. No one can prepare you for that. I think for me, it feels like my life's been a whirlwind since that day. Yeah. But yeah, so I got to go to the US Open, which was cool. Watch a few matches and hang out in like a VIP suite, because Bermuda is a sponsor of the event. So that was really incredible. I just like love walking around and seeing all the tennis players and the coaches, and just experiencing the whole vibe of the event. And then, of course, I went back to Bermuda in October, and it was absolutely nuts. It was incredible to see the reception and just feel it and just to be there. From the airport, I had a motorcade from the airport all around the island, and people were out cheering and singing, chanting signs, air horns going, music blasting for my arrival. And then, there was many events that week, and which culminated in Flora Duffy Day, renaming of a few places on the island, which is pretty special, and just totally overwhelming. Because I mean, for me, I'm just thinking I'm me, and then to have all this, you're like, wow, okay, cool, are you sure? But I think
I'll drive down Flora Duffy Boulevard and go to the Flora Duffy pool. We can go celebrate Flora Duffy Day.
I know. So
it's so cool.
Been cool,
but so well deserved. That's really, really fun. And then in the midst of this, I got to go off to Abu Dhabi and go go win another. And before that, obviously, you were Edmonton to win the World Championships, right? So this has been just one of those years that's you put this in the scrapbook and frame the thing. Very cool.
Yeah, thank you.
So how do you, now you're going to XTERRA, how do you balance the XTERRA training, the Super League training, the WTS training, because it's all a little bit different?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is a little bit different, but at the same time, kind of all, swim, bike, run. And I think, during the different periods of the year, I built up, a really nice solid base. And from that, I can work off, to various different distances and add little bits of intensity here and there. I think in this year, I had such a massive block leading into the Olympics and got so fit and did so much intensity that I've actually been able to use a lot of that fitness throughout the rest of the year and just put in a few specific sessions here and there just to kind of fine tune me for whatever event I'm doing. If it was like Super League, which of course is like super short, powerful, speed, top end. And then, balance things out a little bit if I was going to race an Olympic distance. And going into now XTERRA, honestly, just because of where I'm at in the year I've had, we've decided to back off quite a bit of the intensity and just have fun riding my mountain bike, doing some trail running, getting in some volume, but really backing off some intensity just because of where I am in the year, honestly, and everything I've had to balance in the last few weeks, or months, which that's been the hardest part, that my time has not quite been my own as it was. And how I protected it before the games. There's been so many opportunities. So yeah, it's definitely been quite the balance, and well, we'll see if it works out in the next.
It'll be fun. I mean, the good part about having this 5-year build up to the Olympics is now it's only 3 years to Paris.
Oh yeah.
And I'm guessing that's a goal.
I think so. Yes. It's funny, in the build up to Tokyo, I said I would never do another Olympics again. But I think
you've done 4, right? Done 4 builds.
Done 4, yeah. But I think a lot of that was due to the fact that it was a very intense build and I was carrying a lot on my shoulders.
Sure. A whole nation, by the way.
Yeah. So I don't know, now that it's done and I won, it's kind of, this huge relief. And I'm definitely coming to, opening up to the fact of maybe doing another build to the Olympics. And I think that's the special thing about building to the Olympics is every time it's different. And
right.
This one will be totally different because I'm the defending champion and I've won the gold medal. And I don't know, I think it's
playing with house money
opportunity.
Yeah. It's like, listen, you've got your goal, right? It's like Nicholas Spirig saying to Gwen when they were running in 2016, when Gwen wanted Nicola to take a lead, she says, I already got my goal. If you want yours, you're going to have to take it from the front. And Paris isn't a bad place to. No,
not a bad place. And as you say, it's only 3 years. So
yeah,
I still feel definitely the love for the short course racing and I really enjoy it. But definitely over the next few years, I want to introduce more 70.3.
Oh, okay.
That's been a big goal of mine. In fact, I was meant to be at 70.3 Worlds this year. That's the one thing I couldn't fit in. Couldn't quite do it all.
Yeah.
So, next year, that's quite a fun goal of mine.
That'll be fun. And St. George is a good course with the climbing.
Yes. Yeah. I watched it this year. I mean, I really loved watching that race this year. It was so cool. And the course looks incredible. And just, trying something new within triathlon. I've done 170.3. It went okay, but I definitely need some work on my TT bike and just kind of challenge myself and learn some new skills.
I love it. Hey, Flora, thanks so much for taking time. It's been such a treat. I just love what you've had to overcome in your career. Just, knowing, getting to a point where triathlon was, you really didn't want to be involved with it. And then getting the love back. And now you're the best in the world. That's pretty damn cool.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Hey, give my best to Dan. Thanks again for joining us. Again, this is Breakfast with Bob, Not Quite Kona edition. Our guest, Olympic gold medalist, Flora Duffy. And I'm guessing that never gets old hearing that.
Nope, I don't think it ever will.
I love it. Flora, thank you so much, and give my best to Dan.
Perfect. I will. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.